Hello, I'm Lee, and this is RT Talks. We're talking with Griff of the Griffin Saddlebag about Kickstarter, what to expect, what you'll need, and what it takes. If you're listening, we will answer community questions at the end, and if you're on the podcast, hello from another time. Griff, hey, how's it for the second time going?
Well, you know what? It's still good, and I'm still happy to be here.
That's great. So, we're here to discuss Kickstarter and to go over just your experiences and what other people can learn from them and how people in general can learn and grow more from it. So, without further ado, starting Kickstarter obviously is a huge project. It's a huge endeavor. And let's take it a step at a time here as if though we were preparing, contemplating doing a Kickstarter. Before the Kickstarter is even launched, what expectations do you think are good to have to solidify or keep in mind?
I think the biggest thing that people get caught up in is a sense of urgency before the project even starts. I have cautioned several people to delay their Kickstarters, and it has always been the right call. Because the thing that you can consider is that once you launch a Kickstarter, you can't unlaunch it. Or if you do, it's quite embarrassing. Or at least I feel as though it is.
It's not a cat that truly goes back in the bag. As some people have said about video games, you get one launch, even if it's early access.
Yeah. And the only thing that can happen, if you take more time to do it, optically, the end result is that a backer has to wait less time between giving you money and getting the thing that they want, which just makes you look more reliable, even if you've been working on it for the same amount of time. So always consider how much time you need. Do you capital N need to launch this like now? Or is money a roadblock for you, or some kind of choke? Consider that. But up until the literal moment that you need to start putting some capital down, delay it. Because in that time you can always foster more relationships, get larger communities and larger audiences, talk about it more, and let people know that it's coming. I kind of drum up that interest over a longer period of time. Because, if people learn about it after the fact, that's not going to do you as much good.
Yes, I just say, Griff, I truly wish it had been you in my year counseling me 3 years ago. Because, wow, this advice may even to some people who are just starting to learn about Kickstarter sound so simple or so straightforward that, like, oh, of course, you build up more time, you delay it. But let me tell you, the moment that you begin to do a lot of this networking, you are going to encounter some more mercenary individuals whispering in your ear who have, shall we say, different intentions and priorities, who are going to be telling you need to hit the pedal now. And I strongly advise you to listen to what Griff says, not just in general, but here. If you take nothing else from this talk, Griff has already dropped a huge gem. Do not rush into this.
The other thing that I would recommend people expect right off the bat is a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of emails. In general, I allot at least an hour or two for admin and some sort of prep or similar kind of Kickstarter related work a day, or like a work day, which for me is 5 days a week. Other folks are confident, or like their audience expects like 1 day a week of interactions from them, but it really just depends on what your audience suggests or expects rather. I think that in the world of Kickstarter, you're going to be making first impressions with a lot of new people, beyond your typical audience. So I would probably over interact as opposed to under, given that choice, which is why every day I have like a folder on my Chrome bookmarks bar of like all my daily links. That open up things for like me to like post to Reddit or like respond to Instagram messages, like on the desktop or like send an email and yada yada yada. And of those are both my Kickstarter campaign links. So I check it every single weekday to look for new comments or new questions or new messages on Kickstarter, and then I respond to them promptly. That sort of transparency is going to get you far, and it's going to make you a more reliable, supportable creator. So expect that level of responsibility. At least that's my suggestion. Obviously, you can, you determine how much you want to interact with people on there. Some Kickstarters do just fine and like don't post for months at a time. That's not the way that I have run mine, but that's not saying that it's the only way to.
I would say it probably also ties into what you've already mentioned, which is expectations. And one of those big ones is going into Kickstarter. As creators, we have certain expectations from our audience, right? Like we put something out, we're expecting a certain response. Something goes under, something goes over. People talk about something more. People don't talk about something, we notice it because we have a baseline. Did your expectations of your community also change as you entered the Kickstarter? Did you see more engagement? Did you see less engagement? Did you see a different sort of engagement from not even just the new people, but even like the established people or the crowds you were expecting?
Mm.
Because I know that with Kevin Crawford, he is a ghost. You cannot reach him, but he puts out a Kickstarter fairly reliably. He says, hello, here is the whole raw version of the book. You can download it for $1. If you like it and you would like it in layout and print, give me money, please and thank you. Here are the stretch goals. There will be no more. And it's not that he doesn't post updates, right? He's good about that, but he's not out there doing big. He's not doing a lot of the events that are going to help you grow and are going to help reach new audiences, because that's not what he's doing. He's activating an audience that already exists, that already has a certain set of expectations from him.
Sure.
But particularly if you're someone who's trying to break out, particularly from a fairly new point, that stuff about interacting with the new audiences, oh, that goes like quadruple, right? But I think for anyone, you want your Kickstarter to succeed as much as possible, and you want to draw those people in. But yeah, in terms of those expectations with your community, did you feel like there was a change? Did you feel like there was a surge? More people talking, more activity?
I think it introduced me to a different sort of supporter. My position in the community is sponsored by patrons. So my content is typically through Patreon as like a daily thing. So when it comes to a Kickstarter, which is not so much like a digital subscription, pay per month support system or service, it is a like one and done sort of thing. A lot of people prefer one and done sorts of things. And so there were a lot of people who said, hey, I've been following you for X number of time, but I just, I don't really like subscription things. It also brought a lot of people out of the woodwork who did not interact with me kindly, at least with my first Kickstarter. Yeah. So I think it activated people who were turned off by subscription services like Patreon. And, it gave me like first interactions with people whom I had not met yet. Some of them have stuck around.
Nice. Yeah, some of them good, some of them bad.
Mostly good. And and I'm sure we'll talk on that later. But yeah, like just interacting with certain people. It's yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a very interesting productivity tool. So you have the Chromebook and it basically lives as the link list, like here's Griff's daily tasks.
Yeah, I think I have like 16 different tabs in there.
Nice.
But yeah, because I put something out every weekday, it's like pretty much the same links every single day. And so yeah, I control click and it opens up all 16 tabs.
Ooh, and then you dive in. That's
and it's all in chronological order. So I just go left to right.
Ooh, that's so nice. So many hours of my life lost to bouncing around tabs. This is some very, very solid advice yet again. And as we move through the expectations, what did you start out thinking you'd need for crowdfunding campaigns? Because you've got a basis in Patreon, as we just mentioned. You have an established basis of people who are like, this is Griff. This is the Griffin Saddlebag. I pay every month. I know what I'm getting, right? And then you reach out. But before you'd reached out and you'd had all these encounters, what did you think you'd need going into a crowdfunding campaign?
Well, I was fortunate enough that I already had a good working relationship with my friends at Hit Point Press. Mm-hmm. And, they do a lot of Kickstarters. And so I had some good advice from the get. I have learned some things since then that are probably more unique to my interactions, and some things that I've learned that I've passed on to them in return and they've started doing. But in general, I knew that I would have to email people. I didn't think that there'd be quite so much back and forth as there is, and I certainly didn't expect the number of spreadsheets that are involved. Mm-hmm. There's also a tremendous amount of back-end, like nitty-gritty setup stuff that I did not anticipate. And for my first Kickstarter, had me screaming at a computer screen like a toddler. It was not cute, but it was just very aggravating. So be prepared for that level of admin too.
Absolutely, there's quite a bit, because the Kickstarter glamorization and focus is never on that stuff. So yeah, those friends and that good advice you get, very invaluable. Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say some of the more unique things that you learned? Because you had equipment from Hit Point Press, which is a great point. Make friends who've done this, learn from them, talk to them, and come to talks like this. But what were the things that you really experienced on your own that were either more unique to you or just an insight you gained in the process?
In general, I think I'm gonna go back to allotting more time. I've learned to allot more time, and in general, I would say that give yourself, if you think, okay, I think I can have this done by this date, give yourself another 2 months. Chances are, either you need those 2 months and you look like somebody who knows how to schedule things, or you don't need them and you look like you're on top of things and you really surprise people and delight them. In my case, I have undershot both times. I have needed more time for each of my campaigns. Fortunately, I think in a post 2020 Kickstarter landscape, people are more patient than they used to be. I ran my first Kickstarter. I literally hit the launch button, I think, a week before lockdown in 2020, which was, unfortunate timing.
Indeed.
But following that and the various shipping network and infrastructure collapse that happened as a result of the pandemic, or at least of the onset of it, I think following all that, people are more patient now than they used to be. I think also I'm benefiting from having an established track record of somebody who can complete and satisfy expectations of backers. So I suspect that your first time will be easier than mine because we live in a post 2020 world and with, backers who understand that. But overall, I'm confident that your second and third and so on Kickstarters will be progressively more and more smooth with your customer, with your backer interactions, because you're going to have that track record of somebody who can actually fulfill this stuff. That has been something that I've learned, to expect those sorts of interactions and predict kind of how they will change over time.
Certainly. There's a reason that most of those video game Kickstarters that actually fund are, hey, we're industry veterans who made this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you feel that people already saw you to a degree as a fulfiller because you have the clear track record on Patreon?
Shockingly, not really.
Really?
Again, because it speaks to a different crowd. Being able to upload stuff every day to Patreon or social media, is its own task, that I can complete. But transforming digital stuff into physical stuff is something else.
True.
It also meant that I had to forge a lot of new relationships with manufacturers, and I've had to do a lot of that with my second Kickstarter, and that was something that I didn't expect. But now that I have those relationships and I know how to work with people who can make things, I think that's going to make future Kickstarters even simpler for me too. Which kind of goes into how many emails and how many spreadsheets you should expect. It really depends on how many products you're making.
Number going up. And what, if anything, because you've obviously learned a lot, you've had a lot, and you've smoothed things out since the first encounter. Your subsequent ones are easier. They know that you fulfilled in Kickstarter before, so it's smoother in that regard. What, if anything, have you decided to go without after your first outing? What did you include in the first Kickstarter and you're just like, nah, not anymore?
Yeah, I've learned to simplify things. The first Kickstarter was pretty simple. It was a book and cards and a pin and totes, with some extra digital stuff too. Those were fairly easy to produce, but I didn't have the relationships that I do now. If I were to do the first Kickstarter again, it'd be much quicker. But with my second Kickstarter, I made so much merch, and as a result, I'm behind schedule on fulfilling it. But everybody is more patient with me now for the reasons that I mentioned before. I've also learned that being transparent with your updates is really important. I've started including videos of things that I've gotten in the mail from as prototypes or updates, whatever I can shoot physical video of, I do. And I'll typically hold on to things for once a month, because Kickstarter will put up a big red mean looking bar every month and be like, hey, you haven't posted an update in a while, and you have backers who want an update. And it's very upsetting to see that bar. So I kind of save everything for a once a month update, take a video of it, and a video shows people that, hey, it's real. It also humanizes me as a person with a voice and a dog who is just recording things in his dining room. Please be nice to me. I'm doing my best. And it has really worked. It has eased people's minds. So while that buys me some time, one of the things that has really, I don't want to say, one of the things that has made my second Kickstarter more difficult is just the complete volume of stuff. So what I'm going to be doing with future Kickstarters is just kind of reducing the volume a little bit, or I had to reinvent several wheels this time around. The manufacturer that I was working with hadn't necessarily made things, or hadn't made things in the way that I wanted to. So with my second Kickstarter, I had to explain the sort of GM screen that I wanted to produce, which hadn't been done before. And they had to, through trial and error, figure out the right way to do it. And in this case, that was just basically like putting pockets on the inside, like PVC like clear plastic pockets on the inside of a GM screen, on top of like the full paper sleeves. You can like put like a whole like letter size piece of paper in there or something. These have an extra set of pockets on top of that clear plastic that you can put like little tarot sized cards into, which makes it easy to use the also included like Griffin Saddlebag like item cards, or other monster cards from Hit Point Press and stuff. And they took a lot of prototyping, and so in order to kind of like for future projects, in order to make sure that my deadlines are more accurate, I want to reduce the number of things that I have to allot time for prototyping for, because boy howdy does that take time. So yeah, in general, I'm going to be simplifying things. I'm going to be keeping products that sold well, or that people seem interested in, but I'll be like updating designs to match whatever's for book 3, or I put out coins with book 2, and people really like the coins.
And you've already made coins, so now you can just make more coins.
I've already made coins. I have the contacts. I know the kind of like the workflow and what to expect and the timeline for making coins. So I can do that with updated coins for book 3, because I make new magic coins. I have made new magic coins since then, so on and so forth. So kind of figuring out like what is worth my time and then reducing it down that way. So, I kind of, what is it? Is that Goldilocks with like the porridge, or the, like this one's too hot, this one's too cold, this one's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of finding that balance right now.
Yeah, we're all our own Goldilocks breaking into a bear's house.
Yeah.
Truly. And so overall, you'd say scope control probably, in terms of like.
Ooh, that is such an elegant way to to not babble on like I just did. Yeah, scope control. That's great.
No, you spoke about it at length so that we could all absorb, because we can sling a dozen cool words like scope control or ludonarrative dissonance, but we're here to learn what that means from the horse's mouth. So thank you, Griffin. As we handle what to expect, and don't forget, you need that time. You need more time than you think you need, and if you're going to have to figure out something for the first time, boy howdy, even more time. What will you need? What will you need is where we go to next. And I think the top question, you've already answered this in part, but just to review and touch on anything that's more cogent to this question in particular, what do you need to launch a successful Kickstarter?
A CPA, somebody to help you with taxes.
True.
Yeah.
True.
You'll also need a spreadsheet that includes manufacturing costs. So again, you're going to need manufacturing contacts leading up to this. Don't wait until after you're funded to figure out how much something costs.
Oh yeah, no.
People have lost their houses for this. Don't be one of those people. Like over plan, which again kind of like leans into giving yourself more time. So I have a spreadsheet that includes my manufacturing costs, Kickstarter costs, backer kit costs, ad costs, if I do ads, shipping costs, and the eventual cost to backers. I'll have one of these with like each different like breakpoint of like saying, okay, if 500 people order this book, that's like, this is how much the book is going to cost, and that's what my bottom line looks like as a result of that. If 1,000 people buy the book, this is what that looks like. So kind of adjusting those costs, respectively. It really helps if you are a spreadsheet wizard. I am not. There are people who will help you with this, or have already done it and can give you a copy of it. I am not confident in the quality of mine. Otherwise, I would put it out there.
I mean, yet again, connections seem to be what we'll need.
Yeah, and just giving yourself enough time to really make sure that these are accurate numbers. Another thing that happened too with my first Kickstarter is because of the whole like shipping breakdown. That I with my first Kickstarter, I had my shipping costs integrated, but because of the pandemic, by the time that I actually fulfilled, shipping costs were doubled what I had planned for.
Yeah.
Now I had enough padding because of this spreadsheet that it was okay. I also told people ahead of time saying, hey, this is really messed with the amount of money that I had allotted for these for shipping. If you would like to contribute to a tip jar on the backer kit that I had set up, I said, hey, if everybody pitched in an extra $3 on average, we'd be totally square, right? And people would put in like $20 for it. Which was like super nice. So yeah, again, which also kind of like leans into being transparent with people. Ultimately, you are trying to sell whatever you're making to people like you. So like ask yourself without any ego, would I buy this product? Would I believe in this creator? So on and so forth. And if and you know, and it takes some practice to kind of remove yourself and like remove your own confidence from it. So make it as compelling and believable as you can. And being transparent helps with that. And having a good grip on where all of your various money on like where all your income and revenue will go will really help you make those transparent updates and be clear with people, which will make people more confident in how savvy you are. And like I said, a CPA will help make sure that you account for taxes too, which in the US is about 35%.
Yes, it's considerable in a lot of ways, and you have to keep in mind what's a business expense, what you're writing off, yada yada. Do you incorporate? Speaking of all of these little gems and things like launch on a Tuesday or January or 11 a.m. or earlier EST, what do you think of so there's a lot of common advice, right? And we have two categories here. What is the best piece of advice that you see commonly shared of for Kickstarters that is actually like certified triple gold true? Like, yes, everyone says this, and also you should do it. Like the advice that you get from basically anybody about Kickstarter.
Probably something that we both hit on, which is to like kind of provide some sort of evidence that you are qualified to be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like talking about like, hey, like we are veteran game developers, or I've been creating magic items or been writing content for X number of years and yada yada yada. Accolades always help. You don't want it to come off as boastful, but you do want to give people like confidence.
Yeah, qualifications have it read almost like a CV, but not boring in terms of like, establishing credibility, as Dom says. Just show, yes, we are who we say we are, and we've done, these are the things from this that we've done before. These are the things that we haven't done before, but are going to pay someone to do. Here's who we're going to, if at all possible. And, just anything you can to establish that credential.
I would say that, and having a really good looking campaign page, which includes a video.
Yes.
Videos will sell way more than a static image will.
Completely.
Spend the money on production value on that. It will come back and in returns.
Absolutely.
I don't want to say I promise that, but I think that it is extremely likely that it will.
Yeah, I mean, you can find ones without videos that do well, but I've never seen them and thought this would be making less or the same amount of money with the video. I'm thinking if they dropped a few hundo on an animated video, they'd be looking at thousands more personally. And these are all no guarantees, right?
Yeah. I think both of those. Well, at least I think that polishing a campaign kind of leads into, or kind of leans into, to what I said before too, about like give yourself more time to make sure that everything looks good and is like set up properly. Totally. Because you only have one chance to make a first impression.
You really do.
Yeah, and it's like it's in the first couple days that you're going to make a lot of your funding, and then in the last couple days you're going to make the rest of it. And so you want to have something that is compelling enough for people to be like, oh yeah, like off the bat, because if somebody backs you day one, that gives them essentially a full month to tell their friends about it. So you want to maximize the amount of time for word of mouth to spread. So make it as convincing in front.
The quick start that we did, a lot of people cited it as the quick start looked good, and the quick start is a lot like a tabletop role playing game book. You know what I mean? So they were inspired with confidence. So I think as close as you can with physicals, I feel like you even have a harder battle, because you've got to show, no, like this is the physical thing that's going to exist and it's going to be really cool. Did you feel that was a trouble, or did you have like a smooth time with it, more or less? You were like, here's the digital mock-up, here's the art, here's what we know, here's what we've got, and people just sort of went with it.
So fortunately I have a background in design. Ooh. So I can mock up a lot of things.
Yes.
So I didn't have much of an issue with that, and actually it was a nice, refreshing change of pace. One of the things that I also recommend to people is to, which again leads into time, give yourself more time, is that like whenever I launch a Kickstarter, I'm already 90% finished with like the PDF for the book. So I can show screenshots, I can have the PDF up, immediately, so on and so forth. With my last Kickstarter, I included a sample PDF in there too. That was like 16 or so pages. Does that answer your question?
No, absolutely. I mean, visual presentation just in general, I'm not surprised over background design, because like everything that I see from the Griffin Saddlebag, it's tight, it looks good, and it's also just broadly speaking well presented. And I think that helps inspire confidence and get people on board.
Yeah.
And remember, a lot of people are going to scroll through your page and not actually read any of the words outside of like a large graphic. So
right. Yeah. So textures are good. Yeah.
Now this is going to be slightly more controversial. Free scoop if you'd like, but is there any piece that you single out as like the worst piece of advice that people are commonly sharing about Kickstarter? The advice that people are giving that is, you would say, perhaps questionable, if not the worst, or like more variable than it is led on to be.
Well, I actually did just see a question come in that kind of leads into what I'd say for that, which is the value of ads.
Mm-hmm.
I think, years ago ads performed better than they do now. Man, I spent money on ads for my second campaign, and the return was honestly pretty pitiful.
Yeah.
It just not worth it. You're going to get more bang for your buck by supporting your fellow creators and sponsoring their content, so that they will talk about whatever it is that you're making.
Yeah, you want to tap those communities and have an organic move.
Yeah, and it's and I don't want it to be like like taking advantage of followers' trust by saying, oh hey, your favorite content creators are spouting this thing, right? But it's like by fostering the community and the friendships that you've already built up within this community, you are going to be building confidence not only among your friends but among your friends' followers by doing it that way, as opposed to just being like spending money on an ad that gets lost to an ad block or gets scrolled past on Instagram without a second thought. Because man, in this day and age, we are so blind and numb to sponsored content that we just scroll past it. We don't even look at it.
Absolutely. But that trust that we build, because we trust these friends who we're going to, and they trust us. So when they say, it's not like someone they've never heard of hands them $200 and says, "Ayo, go on and support this." Say it's the best product you ever touched. It's your friend saying, "Hey, how much is this to like sponsor XYZ amount of content?" And they know you and they know the thing, and they've already got a reasonable expectation of what it is, what it's like, the quality you put out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to come from the heart. It's going to be a lot more authentic, and that's going to make what they do even better. You know what I mean? Especially if they are a lot of content creators in our space are not necessarily more traditional marketing, which is to say they do not get on there and seemingly organically say, "This is a wonderful product. Please buy it." Right? When they are actually excited, that is when you get the excitement, and frequently that is what their audience likes about them, especially if they're like a visual content creator. So yeah, I find the people who know you, find the people who would like your sort of stuff and get to know them, I think is absolutely a strong thing and a needful thing.
Yeah, a testimony rather than an ad will go a long way.
Absolutely, testimonials. I couldn't get Facebook to spend my money. It's the advice that hangs around from people who've done well in the past is absolutely ad game. Hundreds turn to thousands, and I heard that, and I'm sure it's true for some people, and it may still be true today. Personally didn't have that experience. What would you say was the most surprising part of the Kickstarter process for you? We've got a lot of spreadsheets and we've had a lot of math, and we had the daunting matter of the taxes. Was there anything else that stood out as like the most surprising part of the process for you?
I've already touched on this, but I think the difference between my first and second Kickstarters and like the interactions that I had between it, because in my second Kickstarter, people are way more patient and kind. And I think part of that is just, based on like my learnings and like me being more transparent with like my various updates and, and again, like the videos make such a difference. But yeah, I think I was really surprised based on like just the quality of interactions that I've had. Some really nasty people will come out of the woodwork every once in a while, but that happened like, and again, like, I could probably count on one or two hands the bad interactions that I had in my first campaign. I could very easily count on like, I think a few fingers, the numbers in my second one. And I think that was really surprising. And yeah, and just the time to prototype a product, like that and ocean freight times. Ocean freight takes so long. If the manufacturer may say, "Hey, we're all done, we're shipping it," and but you got to plan on like another 6 to 8 weeks between it going out on a boat and you being able to ship that.
Yeah, I mean, so much to be said about shipping as well in general. Good surprises for someone else to have and for you to learn about. So thank you, Griff, for sharing that with us and for us to take it forward. And as we've moved through your talk, we've learned about what to expect, we've learned about what you'll need, and obviously these two things are very interrelated, so we keep hitting on some of the same topics. We move now to what it takes. And this is perhaps the most open-ended question of the night, and I don't know if it'll take us through the rest or be fairly straightforward, but what does it take to succeed in a Kickstarter?
Persistence, just being there and being, in my case, relentlessly pleasant, kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
If they don't do the same for you, and being there to respond to messages every day, or emails every day, because nothing is going to kill back our confidence quite like them feeling as though they can't get in touch with you.
Yeah. If the lights aren't on, no one's home, no one's responding.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, like, did they cut and run with our funding? I don't think that really happens much anymore, or these days. But I think Kickstarter is kind of known for like having that be a possibility.
Yeah, especially among super backers who have probably had rates of less than 50% of what they backed, and they can get a little defensive, and that's okay. I'm not super backers make so much of what we do happen, but yeah, that's people are going to want to see, you know what I mean? And you show them with the videos.
Yeah, which transparency is something else that it takes to succeed. You really have to be clear with what people should expect and what's going on. And so long as people feel as though you're being respectful of their belief in you, they're willing to extend it. And being able to buy that continued and extended belief, it's easier with more track record and more history. And yeah, some thick skin is going to help, because you're gonna have people that are gonna say mean things. I can still remember some comments from my first one that stuck with me for years.
Oh,
I don't really think about them anymore, but there were one or two that really got to me.
Oh,
and really stuck in my thoughts.
Emotion.
Yeah.
Do you have people who you turn to emotionally for support during this process?
Oh gosh, not well. So I have my partner is wonderful. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without her being my backup and my support. But okay, so this is the part where I get to talk about how much I love acupuncture.
Oh.
I have an acupuncturist that I swear by. And I tell everybody that they should have an acupuncturist. I also suggest you have a nutritionist and a chiropractor and a massage therapist. And massage therapy, not just to, go relax, but to actually, get your muscles back where they should be. Yeah, all of these various things. And, you could hashtag self-care that if you wanted to. But I think, just going through this it takes a toll on you.
Yeah, there is a physical level of stress.
Yeah, and you are gonna burn out if you don't have the right tools on your side. And for me, acupuncture has been life-changing, frankly. Yeah.
Nice. So a lot of that stress and emotional relief came in a physical format from wellness and from all of these methods that you go through.
Yeah, a combination of them all. My nutrition and physical health contributes to mental health.
Yeah, as someone on the up from a nadir, night and day. Yeah, and so we've got that. And next up, I actually have personal habits, productivity tools, but I feel like we've covered both of them, right? We know you've got the links, you've got everything set up, you have a separate device that shows you what you need to do next, and then you have all of these personal wellness aspects that help you keep your eye on the prize. You have someone in your life, your partner, who you can turn to, or who is there generally as emotional maintenance, because the people in our life who we love are going to find out about the Kickstarter, and they're going to be aware the Kickstarter is happening, to put it bluntly, right? And if you just stay persistent, transparent, trustworthy, with a well-scoped project where anything that you don't already know how to do, you figured out the price for it beforehand as close as you can, you've left the buffer. That's really what it takes from what I'm hearing from you, right? Keep persistent, we keep transparent with everyone, we stay trustworthy, and that trustworthy maintenance is we're talking to them, even when they're not being very nice to us, we're talking, we're responding, and we're keeping everything as scoped within our abilities as we can.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that could be put under the umbrella of being responsible.
Yeah, responsible creator.
Yeah, just be a responsible creator. Even if your brand is like cheeky and sharp and quick to heckle hecklers, like that sort of thing won't fly. When backers are on the line, and
Yeah.
So yeah, just be responsible.
There's a sharp line, yeah.
Yeah, like you really have to be a business when it comes to running a Kickstarter, and because the alternative is that you either lose credibility or wind up with basically nothing left by the time you finish.
Yeah, you can be quick-witted, you can also be frank, but there's definitely a point where you want to be aggressively diplomatic in any backer interaction, because the odds of somebody deciding that this is a screenshot moment are very high in such an environment.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say, it takes one heated gaming moment of saying like, well, if you don't like it, then you're whatever negative thing you're about to cook up,
Yeah.
you really want to post.
You're just a poopy butthead, and then that ruins your career.
You'll be posting 2 years, 10 years down the line, and people will have nothing to say but to post that screenshot. And lots of people will like and retweet it. I'm sorry to say, because hating is big. Well, Twitter won't exist, but hating is big clicks, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And as we come to the bottom of what it takes, we learn about the Griff method, if you will, for being a responsible creator. And if you would be comfortable sharing, because obviously this is a bit much, would you care to tell us about a time you were disappointed by the outcomes or process of crowdfunding, and how did you deal with that disappointment and those outcomes?
Well, so I've run 2 Kickstarters. Both of them were rather successful, and I'm very grateful for that. I do have some other projects that are ongoing that, I was really hoping that, because of my track record of somebody who can see things through, that, they would have had a little more traction to start out. And that's just not the case. And I think that's something that we as content creators, or just people who are making things that we want to, if we are so fortunate, or we are so driven to do so. If you are known to do one thing well, I don't think that I don't say I don't think, but like 9 times out of 10, that sort of belief in your qualifications won't extend to something unrelated.
Yeah.
I think a good example, my very close friends who I respect and just love out of this world at Mage Hand Press, they are trying, they had a total kick-ass book, Valda Spire's Secrets, did nearly 800,000, if I remember correctly, on Kickstarter. Did great. Plus whatever was funded after. But then when it came to them making what I think is one of my favorite card games that I've played in the last 10 years, they comparatively a pittance raised. And the same kind of quality and attention to detail and game balance and thought went into both products. But because one was D&D and a book, and the other was an original card game from the same creators, not nearly the same reaction. Despite people who play D&D are very likely to enjoy these sorts of card games, did not translate, which is shocking.
Yeah, and the conversion math, even when it works out, someone ran the numbers, and literally, if you want views on a tabletop live stream on Twitch, for a while there, statistically speaking, it was best to build a video game audience because it would build faster, and accept that you were going to lose like more than half, like 3/4 of them to transition to D&D. But that 1/4 that you'd get after those years of that audience is more than you'd build purely streaming. And it's a bit of a tangential, but just to say
that is tragic.
Yeah,
that is tragic. But I completely believe that.
Yeah, and you're moving so between two things. And Harky asks actually a great community question. This is a good intro to the community questions, because we've got this idea like, you can be a great juggernaut in this space and you're in a really adjacent arena, but all of a sudden everybody isn't showing up.
Yep.
Harky asks, how important do you find consistent brand identity to be in carrying an audience from one product to another?
I guess it depends on how much you want people to value your brand, as opposed to do you want your brand to be associated with the same quality of your content, or do you want each piece of content that you put out to be taken separately and considered separately? I think if you do a lot of different things, I don't think that you need a particular through line, especially because, if you, let's say, do Pathfinder this and then D&D that, and then oh gosh, I don't know, something else. I'm blanking off the top of my head. Different systems all over the place.
Yeah,
you wouldn't want their branding to all be the same, because they're all different systems, right? Your logo should be good.
Absolutely. Trade dress, quality trade dress.
Yeah, quality trade dress, sure. And I think that your language should be consistent. Like your voice, your brand voice should be consistent. I think that those things matter in that case. With something like the Griffin Saddlebag, it's each book and each iteration is more the same, but more. and I've become a better illustrator over the years. But it's more and more the same trade dress, just polished up better. And I think and that's purposeful.
Yeah, I mean, you build a shield of quality, but at the same time, if you think about a brand like MCDM or whoever, if they, or like Wizards themselves, if they stamp their stamp on something, you're coming with a quality expectation that is on a tier with a $1 million Kickstarter. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's some things that I do as part of a big crowdfunding project. There's some things that I put out because I feel like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally I made something in literally MS Paint and doodled our logo on it and put it out as a Decent Shot Dirty once. I mean, there's there's a wide variance, and in general, for your product, for the market, right? You want to be able to have a consistent stamp and say, this is the stamp, this is the label. And maybe like when you're like a big outfit, you might be able to say like, this is our Fly By Night brand. This is the great, the great value game boxes that they had for like Xbox and PlayStation 2. Like you can have your silver brand. There's nothing wrong with that as long as everyone involved knows what they're getting. But it's good to communicate it through the branding, because if they see, hello, here is my Kickstarter brand. I raised $10 million in the Kickstarter and I gave you the most amazing thing ever. And you put that on like a little Fly By Night, they're going to be really angry at you because they're like, this isn't what I expect from you. My expectations have been lowered. I won't pay you next time.
That's a great example. Yeah, absolutely. You can also consider making kind of like umbrella companies or brands around it.
Yeah.
For those of you who have the Griffin Saddlebag book too, if you look on the credits page, you'll see that there is an additional logo next to the Griffin Saddlebag, which says Career. That is an umbrella company for stuff beyond just the saddlebag. So when as I continue to make different things as my passion wills me to, and as I try to diversify, especially I think people can have a special sense of empathy for that following January. But as I diversify and try new things, being able to say, hey, this is from the people who brought you the person who brought you the Griffin Saddlebag, but this is a new thing. I think that sort of like splitting of branding will help.
Yeah, you can always pull the film from the creator of.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. And it's good to diversify. It's good to have those shells, and it's good to cultivate distinct audiences. And we touch upon so much in this talk, like the business angle and managing that, which is very valid because you should have a good expectation of that going in. Envious Mingo asks here, you touched on soft costs, like your admin costs, a few times when talking about managing Kickstarter campaigns. What other unexpected costs, soft or hard costs, like unexpected shipping costs, popped up as you navigated your first two campaigns?
That's a good question. The cost of art. So for most things, I do my own art, but for certain things like landscapes or character portraits and stuff like that, that is not my wheelhouse. That's not to say I can't. I just don't have the experience with it, nor do I have the time to do so. So with book 2, I paid a variety of artists to do so. Those costs, along with everything else, have gone up.
Oh yeah,
because inflation's a thing, and people need to get their groceries. That's great, and I want people to be able to get their groceries. But expect to pay a significant amount on art if that's something that you need.
Yeah, and it's hard to find, and certain people's commissions will be different. There's regional differences, yada yada.
Yeah.
So much going into that.
And artists need to be able to compete with people who don't see their value and just say, oh, well, we'll just pop something into AI and we'll.
Yeah, my goodness, so much could be said about that.
Yeah.
My creative partner is an artist, and I can tell you right now, we could not afford to pay for the art she makes. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely.
Which is part of relationships, right? And the question of who gets on, because some of these projects, you are an island and you bring people in. Which is that how the Griffin's Saddlebag Kickstarters operate? It's just you and everybody else is contracting?
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive. That you truly are a pillar. I couldn't do it without Pat, just because I write, she does the art, and that's just the thing to keep in mind. Is also if you start splitting the revenue, that money starts to get cut up pretty fast, particularly when it's the post paying for the physical products money.
Yep.
So keeping the split as few ways as possible is important, but odds are good if you have a reliable person you really trust.
Yeah.
You can get a lot done off of that promise of 50%.
It also prevents like feelings from getting hurt too, because people, like I don't care how close of a friend you are, in a 50-50 partnership, both people are not going to be putting in 50% of the work.
Yeah.
That's just not how it happens.
Totally.
So then the person who puts in more work is going to feel jaded.
Versus, hey, give me these 5 pictures, I'll pay you this money, boom, done. Yeah. You want to minimize personal entanglements, potential emotional issues. Yeah, you need a really rock solid situation. It needs to be as rock solid as your credentials.
Yeah, which again makes you a more reliable Kickstarter creator I think, because because you'll have a better handle on your costs.
Totally.
I want to think of, is there anything else? Oh yeah, VAT costs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's something that was new to me this year too, or this campaign. My previous fulfiller took care of it, but not this time. And that's not insignificant. I think it's like 20% of your costs that go, into the European Union. You have to pay that. So again, put that in your spreadsheet and get that accounted for. Yeah, and if you don't know, Kickstarter takes 10%. BackerKit also, gosh, how much do they take now? They take, I think, 3% up front and then 3% of all sales now. Their costs have changed. These are all things you should just know ahead of time. And then, of course, tax man.
Yeah, no, like that number that you see on a campaign is less than will ever touch the hands of the creator.
Oh yeah.
And a good deal is going out to the tax man. So just keep that. If you're ever like a backer being like, you have $1 million. No, if that number says 1 million, they never touched 1 million from this campaign. And they did, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the funny thing with the money.
A really good campaign will walk away with 40%. And that's going to be probably a campaign where most of it's digital. The bulk of it's going to be anywhere from 20 to 30.
Yeah, the physical costs are like most of the average campaign that has them, which actually we have a question here that relates to that. OKSDM, Dennis, him asks, I've heard that making your first Kickstarter should be entirely digital to avoid the hassle of shipping, printing, manufacturing, physical things. Is there anything you would suggest avoiding for a first-time Kickstarter? And I suppose that means like in the vein of the digital decision or just in general.
Yeah. Oh gosh. My first Kickstarter, I didn't really invent much that was new. Oh, except for the tote bags. Oh my gosh, those tote bags were a nightmare, and I'm still trying to get rid of them all.
Oh no, the 76 situation.
Yeah. So tote bags are cool, except for the fact that the ones that I wanted made are circular for the most part. They're a very particular shape. So what I would say for your first Kickstarter, if you're making something, don't reinvent any wheels.
Yeah. Would you put that under prototyping and scope control?
Probably. Yeah. Just be very conservative with your scope in the first one. And being digital is like it talks to that very well. Like that being digital is extremely good scope control. If I only had digital content for my second Kickstarter, I would have been done well over a year ago.
Yeah.
Is that true? No, I would have been done in January because I put out the last thing in January. But the bulk of it would have been done almost a year ago. Like so yeah, it's digital is really handy.
It is.
And it really keeps costs down. Because I can sell 10,000 PDFs and I will retain virtually every single dollar that goes into those PDFs because the cost doesn't there's no cost to produce. It's just sending a digital file. It's great. So there's a lot of value to just have digital only campaigns. I think it comes down to what do you want people to know you for or remember you by? I think that there is a pretty good chance that most digital campaigns, the backers who pledge to them, never actually even interact with the digital thing that they get in the end. And the reason for that is that the digital distribution tools aren't that sophisticated. Or rather, if you are distributing digitally, there are going to be so many customer service emails that you get, and you have to, or messages on Kickstarter saying, "Hey, how do I access my files?" I'm still getting messages every week, month, people saying, "Hey, did the PDF come out yet? I've been waiting for that." And I'm like, dude, it's been out for over a year. It's in so many updates. You can't, kind of like what was said earlier, you can't count on people reading anything.
Kickstarter really doesn't have a great way of saying, hey, your PDF is here, which frankly it should, but yeah.
Yeah, BackerKit is a very good system. The downside with BackerKit is that their costs have continued to change and they're getting greedy, in my opinion. Yep. That's not to say that their service isn't good, but they're just finding more ways to bleed successfully.
Yeah, with any corporation, you can ask is this because they really need it, or is this because somebody who's getting dividend wants more? And yeah, we as a company, you don't want to invite that question in the minds, regardless of what the real split is. You don't want to invite that question in the minds of the consumer. Well then, Demille asks, how do you find the right contacts for publishing, manufacturing, fulfillment, and printing? I mean, I hope you know, because I literally had to have a friend of a friend.
Yeah. Oh, no. And a friend of a friend is a great way to do it. I started out with friend of friending. I have since changed contacts. Okay, so what did I do? I had a friend of a friend for my first Kickstarter's cards.
Mm.
The manufacturer that I'm using now for cards is different. I am eagerly awaiting the day where I'm out of Kickstarter 1 cards so that I can get them all remade with my new contact. Same thing goes. Oh, who else have I changed contacts with? Oh, pins too. Yeah, the pins are being made by somebody else now too. But again, all of those things are word of mouth, and that's I think I don't want anybody to think, oh, I'm not capable of finding manufacturers because I didn't find them on my own. Very few people find them on their own. like,
Yeah.
relish in the simplicity and the joy of being able to use word of mouth. Companies rely on that.
Certainly, and think about if they're advertising hard, like you hear about Aflac all the time. You don't hear about any of their competitors because they're pumping the money into the advertising. It's like the company at the top of the Google result isn't necessarily the best option. They're the ones who invested in getting you. Yeah. And a lot of these people, I mean, we're doing a yearbook manufacturer. We like tabletop is still for a lot of these people fringe, and for a lot of people who are going to give you the best prices and rates is the sort of thing that they could do in theory, but they won't. They like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can go to a tote bag manufacturer and say, put this logo on it. And they're like, that's great. You ask it to be round. Now we've got a new matter, right, Griff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Like, oh my gosh, having that tote bag was such a struggle. Gosh, and the minimum order quantity was also something that I struggling with even today. I have too many tote bags. Oh, actually, I guess that also kind of goes back to the previous question about, or one of the previous questions about unexpected costs.
Ooh, yes.
Warehousing. Oh boy.
Storage. Oh.
Yeah, storage. So with my first Kickstarter, the fulfillers were perfectly happy to store it basically indefinitely until the Kickstarter was finished. That's not the case anymore. and now I'm also and now I'm fielding warehousing costs for the bunch of products all over the world in warehouses that are waiting to go out until like various new waves of content can get fulfilled. It adds up. It is not insignificant.
Absolutely.
But it's also like it's not manageable, but it is like a constant bit of overhead to be considerate of. When you're having products made by a variety of manufacturers, they will typically be happy to store it with you, or to store it until they are finished manufacturing. Like, so for example, I had my beanies and my backpacks being made by the same company, or at least being made by different manufacturers, but all under the umbrella of a shared middleman. Mm-hmm. That middleman was able to negotiate it so that they would collectively hold on to all the products until both of them were completely finished. That way, they get I pay one shared shipping cost, so it's going to be lower. And then when they get to warehouses, we're talking about extra months here that I'm not paying on pallet storage.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things live in attics and basements for a reason. Although with both of those, keep in mind what happens if it floods.
Well, yeah, I mean, typically a warehouse is going to have protections against that. So,
a warehouse has insurance is protection. I mean, like. The alternative that a lot of people will see when we talk about this is I'll just put them in my attic, or I'll just put them in my basement.
Oh boy, yeah, I would caution anybody against self-fulfilling. Oh boy, or I guess like if you are expecting a smaller outcome, or like a smaller Kickstarter, I would say if there are fewer than 500 orders, you could consider self-fulfilling.
Above that, it's worth just like the business insurances and the reliability that comes from paying someone else,
and just the peace of mind. It is not an insignificant amount of work to pack and send those things. And warehouses are going to be getting better rates anyway, to ship stuff. Than you driving down to your local post office with a car full of boxes. Besides that way people don't have your address either, which is always a nice thing.
Yeah. Now, as we piggyback off of the finding the right contacts, Clay asks, piggybacking off this, you mentioned how much bloat from different types of merch was an issue and how you're slimming down a lot. And we talked about that in scope control. What are the best bang for buck types of items you found versus things that were difficult to pull off, such as we've heard about the round tote? What's the item that's basically like that sweet margin for you?
Yeah.
Like not that it's like cheap to make cards, but presumably cards, right?
Oh, yeah.
Compared to the tote.
Sure.
What are the items that you found were the best bang for your buck in terms of the margin, your profit margin, basically?
Yes, there are absolutely items that are like that. I am not sure if I want to give that much of a peek behind the curtain on a podcast.
Valid. Absolutely, I totally understand. Like, there's trade secret zone. Good question.
I think it's just like it's maybe a little untoward to go into like hey, Kickstarter backers, I made the most money from your orders if you bought this, this, and this. But if you bought this, I'm losing money because that actually did happen. Uh, so
Yeah. Good part of being trustworthy and reliable is if someone really loved something that you sold them and it turned out that item was a losing product, there is a logic to not telling them that because that's not really a great feeling. They supported you and they got something cool, and we're trying to ride that high.
yeah, I will be happy to answer that in a DM.
Sure. So Clay, keep that in mind. But yeah, I feel you. I feel you. There's a degree of discretion that comes with being a Kickstarter. And I mean, yeah, you get people's addresses and stuff, and like you have to be really discreet with that. Like you need to be a responsible and trustworthy person on a Kickstarter on many levels. And that's one of them, modeled here for us brilliantly by Clay. As we come up against 315, Matt asks a good question that I think relates back on some other stuff, which we talked about earlier, although it is a bit of a heavy question in case you want to skip it. Are there projects that you feel aren't well suited for Kickstarter? And if so, what kind of project? And what would be a better form of crowdfunding or funding for such a project?
I think, Indiegogo is a good platform for a lot of things. I think a lot of people will just default to Kickstarter, but Kickstarter is sort of like Kickstarter is like the .com of crowdfunding campaigns, whereas Indiegogo is like a .org.
Oh yes, that's a good example.
And I think knowing your markets for each is a good thing. I mean, of course, Indiegogo is also the American alternative to healthcare, which is a travesty.
Truly.
But it's like in that vein. It's like what is an aspiration? What do I want to be able to do? That would be good for an Indiegogo because there is a certain level of compassion that goes into it, and people aren't necessarily going to be jumping down your throats commercially, like what is suggested with a Kickstarter product.
Yeah, and it's not a win or die. You know what I mean? Like they can kick in.
Yeah, and I know that Indiegogo right now is trying to bring on more artists because I literally just got an email from them within the last week about that. So consider that. Man, the products that aren't good for Kickstarter. I don't know if movies are a great idea for Kickstarter. I kind of feel as though that's like indie film stuff, but I'm also not tuned in enough to that community to really have that as a good example.
I've heard mixed things from indie film funding there. What would you say is the best advice that you got from Hit Point Press going into the Kickstarter? Sorry if it cut you off.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I was waffling anyway. Probably the spreadsheet being the spreadsheet of all of your various costs. Being like, okay, I know that it costs this much. All these other various services or people are going to be taking X number of costs or cut, and I can expect to cost, spend this much on VAT or on shipping, and so ultimately that this final figure is what I can expect to take home, before taxes.
Totally.
That level of responsibility was very helpful at the get-go. That and like some of my very first contacts, like my first manufacturing contacts, some of which I'm not using anymore, were also from them.
Absolutely. We were running up here against time, but thank you so much for coming out, Griff.
Oh, absolutely. It was a pleasure.
We are going to roll out here, but thank you so much for coming. And I'm Lee, and this has been RT Talks. Join us live in our Discord for our next event, DM Dave, talking about his journey as tabletop creator, with a date to be announced. It'll be available in podcast form, just like this will be. And remember, this has been Griff of the Griffin Saddlebag. Many wonderful things to check out across the verse. I mean, I've been scrolling through the Instagram before this meeting, and it's lovely. I highly recommend.